So we have heard now from Armin about the viability of natural working fluids, especially CO2 for in high ambient conditions. Armin, in this region, I have often heard the argumentation that CO2 is not efficient under hot ambient temperatures. What's your take on this, and how can we? What's your take on generally on natural refrigerants, and how can we take the prejudices and the fear away from people?
Thank you, Markus, for the question. And those who have listened to the presentation have understood efficiency is not only how to reject the heat, but it's also how to pick up the heat. And there's a big difference compared to other refrigerants, and we can do a lot. And that's why we see that the supermarkets get very energy efficient. And then if we can combine heat rejection with alternatives and be very creative also in the integration in this in the buildings and all this, we can develop solutions which are super energy efficient even in the most severe temperatures. So it's all about knowledge, how to design the system and how to implement it and follow up. And nowadays with AI and the sensors will tell you, are you in the green zone or is there a challenge? And that is good, because in the past you had to wait until it breaks together. Now it will tell you before, I need help. And that's good. That will help these systems to survive, even all of the systems, as long as they have somebody to talk to. That's the next level of maintenance and service and knowledge. Right. So efficient heat pickup, it's a very efficient fluid to be transferred into a building and out of the building, and then we can do an alternative on the outside which is very energy efficient, and the combination together makes it really a good choice.
Murad, Armin had told me that the first CO2 compressor he was able to work with was coming from Bock in Germany. Bock now belongs to the Danfoss group. Can you tell us about Bock compressors, CO2 compressors? Is this technology ready from your side for this region? And generally, so what do you see as feasible at this moment in terms of working with CO2?
Absolutely. First of all, thank you for the presentation. I was just having a look at the slide where you mentioned about the possibility to have high water temperature. And if we look at it at the opposite side, we are talking about high condensing temperatures. So when we say about CO2 in the region of high ambient, then we are sure about the reliability of the system working with CO2. Maybe I have some points on the efficiency part, but this is comply as well on other refrigerants. As you go high with the ambient, the efficiency will drop down. Coming back to the point where we at Danfoss have POC solution, and we have invested a lot on the solutions that is more reliable and high efficiency as well at high ambient with the integration, of course, of the injectors and transcritical systems parallel. This helps a lot on achieving the demanded efficiency as well. Of course, we need to care about reliability.
Amir, we have... sorry.
You said about the opportunity. I believe that in this market, we can say about the industrial refrigeration part and as well cold storage. This is what I see. There is a good opportunity for CO2 to start with in Saudi Arabia. We have some cases as well, CO2, and it's proven itself in the market. We at Danfoss believe that this is the going to natural refrigerant, especially CO2 for this application, will be a good chance for this region as well.
Thank you. Amir, there are, of course, also fluorinated alternatives now with lower GWP levels. In our position paper, we are recommending that transition as fast as possible for general air conditioning and cooling applications. You should already move to lower than 750 GWP. For commercial and industrial refrigeration, we recommend for larger installations lower than 150 because it's easier to handle already like really with low GWP gases. For smaller cold storages, we may take an interim step. How is the situation with fluorinated gases, HFOs and plants? What do you expect in the next couple of years, what to come, how this will develop?
Okay. Thank you, Markus, first of all, for having me and represent Honeywell here. I've been living in the region for 20 years, and we've been having this discussion since the evolution of Montreal Protocol and the phase out of HCFCs, and we have been, advocating for the accelerated phase out of HFCs, and would like to congratulate the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia now for the ratification of Kigali Amendment, which is one big step. So we have come a long way, and what has happened a lot in these years, especially other than complying to the local regulation, whether it was Montreal Protocol or now the Kigali Amendment, and drive for lower GWP refrigerants, I think the key areas for adoption of refrigerants in this region, which is high ambient, and always a debate that how the new alternative will work in high ambient. But what has recently happened, other than high ambient and reliability of the system, energy efficiency has taken a lot of ground, right? The scope 2 piece of it. I mean, this region which produces so much of energy, in the last 10 years, what we have seen with organizations like SASO, evolution of energy ratings for air conditioning equipments, which are much more stricter. At one point, GCC together were spending around $150 billion in subsidies for energy. And that was an eye-opener when all these changes started happening in the transformation that happened, especially in the kingdom. So energy efficiency is very critical. Reliability of the system is important. Water, the usage of water in applications like district cooling, for example, extremely critical. All this region, as you know, obtains its water from desalination, which is again a very energy-intensive process. And this has again been very important, the choice of refrigerant in this region, especially when we see the growth of district cooling, first in UAE and then in Saudi Arabia, now recently with all these giga projects. And above all, the training, the technical capability of the engineers and the technicians who use it, right? A lot has to be done in terms of creating their skills and making them handle the new grade of refrigerants, which could be flammable, mildly flammable, and addressing the safety part of it. So we see a big changes in the position and the choice. We see global players and consultants and OEMs bringing in new technology. And we started seeing the adoption of HFOs because it ticks all the right boxes. For example, in UAE, there are more than 30 district cooling plants running on HFO technology, right? And we see a similar traction in Saudi Arabia and supermarkets, because people want to have long-term solutions. People want to see the compliance of regulation, but they also want a long-term alternative, which is not only help them comply to the scope 1 piece of regulation like Kigali, but also scope 2, I think, which is significantly more important, which is the total cost of ownership of the equipment.
Thank you. Brian, we have, Armin and you have both drawn on that. Europe takes a relatively aggressive step towards the complete phase out of HFCs, and banks are a lot on natural flammable refrigerants and CO2. Are the current safety standards which you have shown us, are they working in Europe very well? Do we need more? Is there something we have learned in Europe about these safety standards? The safety standards are not only there for the design of the products, but also, of course, on the side of installations and service technicians.
I mean, the safety standards with the design part and the practicalities of manufacturing is one thing. The installation is another side. The general overview in Europe for the manufacturing process and the product is a universal regulation. The installation side of things and that mechanism is done individually by each country. It's not an overview on everything. So that's one thing that should potentially change. But as we've said, I mean, we're looking now at how things are changing here, how things are changing here. So we have to be able to say, at the present time, they're coping with that because they've got something that's been in place for a long period of time, for 15 years. So they are coping with that. But the changes that are happening on such a rapid basis and the demands for those changes increasing the necessity for bodies like UL on their research side to be able to entertain that part of it and ensure that we are looking at the right things going forward. We can't look at what we are doing now. We have to be looking 5, 10, 15 years in advance, but as we don't know what those products will be at that time. But we have to look and assume and ask for the expertise of others to be able to advise us and say, this is what we are doing, this is where we're going. And as a body, UL interacts very strongly with many associations to ensure that we're getting that correct information. So we, on our research side, can actually look at how we implement those things to move forward. So I think at the present time, they are coping with everything. It has to improve. It always will improve as things change. And they've got to look at more universal what they do as far as installation is concerned. But when you think that now only Qatar out of the GCC has not, I believe, not ratified the Kigali Agreement, that now puts the GCC in a strong position to follow suit and to engage in a similar fashion to be able to develop those things. But when you look at it now, the GCC is now looking 10, 12 years behind, 15 years behind where we were. And it's been 15 years since the Kigali Agreement has been in place. So, it's been since this 2-40 was in place. So it's taken 15 years to get to that point. And you this morning, when we talk about 2050, another 25 years, that's the time frames that we have to look at. So we've got to be responsible of what's there now, but what's moving forward and engage with the right people to make sure that we're doing the right things.
Thanks. And as a HVAC group leader of Aramco, how do you see the readiness of the region for the refrigerant transition? What are the main obstacles for you, and where do you see that we can transition faster than in other sectors?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Markus. We at Aramco, and I think in the whole HVAC industry, that the topic about refrigerant transition is gaining a lot of traction. And all because, of course, driven by the cooling demand increase worldwide and the regulation changes and the switch to the low global warming potential refrigerant. Just a few days ago, I was reading an article saying that the global market share for refrigerant is currently, the forecast is to grow from 27 billion to 37 billion in the next 5 years. This is aligned with what you just said in the presentation. So there's definitely, the transition is taking place right now, and that's a sign of it. The whole industry, this is not the first time we go through transition. So it's happened before. We phased out of CFC back then in Montreal, and we've done also other phasing out of HSCC as well. So this is another round, basically, and the industry is used to it. But maybe what's different in this one is the scale of the change. It's a larger scale, multiple countries are involved in this. So if I want to maybe summarize the obstructions that we have, or challenges, mainly I think it's 3 elements. Number one is safety codes and regulations. We need to make sure that we have the right safety codes and regulations. Number 2 is training and certification, as you just mentioned.
It works.
This is kind of, let's keep, the second one is certification. It's really training and certification is important to make sure that everyone involved in the handling of the new refrigerant, the A2L and A3, are capable of handling it safely and confidently. And the last one is the regulation. Regulation is really important, something that ties all these requirements together in one framework. The second part of your question, you say what we can go faster. At Aramco, and I think different organization, what we think, we're thinking of what are the low-hanging fruits right now. And for us, there is available in the market, there's some refrigerant, as we said, that have low global warming potential, and they are non-flammable as well. They're widely available in different categories and different equipment. For example, we have the HFO blend of 513 we can use in air-cooled chillers. We have 514A that we can use in water-cooled chillers as well. These all available in the market that doesn't need to change the regulation. They're currently meeting the code and they don't need a different skill set. So we can transition right now, as you said. And especially that Saudi Arabia, we have a huge pipeline of projects in the next 5 years, mega projects. So if we take the decision right now to implement these easy solutions, the refrigerants that can be accommodated without challenges, that's a great choice, and they will have a great saving on everybody on the projects. So definitely that's the way we can fast track the transition until maybe later on that we have maybe more maturity on the whole ecosystem, and we have updated standard, maybe standard certification for everybody handling the projects. Then we can go ahead and move to maybe natural refrigerant and other flammable choices that we have.
Thank you. The second part, or what basically everybody is dwelling on, is also this topic of education, training, qualification. I've mentioned before in my presentation that this can create and contribute a lot to the bottleneck in the future. If we are waiting too long in order to get it started, to get people qualified, we don't only need to qualify the workforce, the service technicians and installers. We also need to have this awareness and the knowledge on the engineering side, on the design side. Brian, how did that go in Europe? So how did Europe make sure that we bring this knowledge about design aspects and safety standards to the designer, to the architects and planners, and how did we qualify the workforce?
I think it's like everything. You've got to enable what is there and face up and make people realize the issues and the problems. So highlighting the issues and the problems, if you do not undertake the correct training, I think that's the first and most important part. Because people, and generally speaking in the region, people are not aware, the manufacturers maybe, but I think at a high level with the authorities are not possibly engaging sufficiently to understand it's fine having all these regulations, but you've got to train, you've got to educate. So you have to have schemes, as was made available in Europe, and people have to be certified and qualified to be able to maintain, install, inspect, remove. They have to have that qualification. So unless you have that, you cannot engage with these products. So that's the important part, is getting a mandatory regulation that says the qualification is X to undertake this work with these products. You do not have this, and visas will not be available for people who cannot, and you have to specialize. It is a specialized product that you have to look at very, very carefully. It can't be just taken as a carpenter, as a plumber, as an electrician. It's not that. And the sooner people wake up and realize how dangerous this can be in the wrong hands, exactly what you said about a heart surgeon. That's a wonderful analogy. If you wouldn't have that. So you have to engage, you've got to produce, and I think it's incumbent upon bodies like Eurovent, like ourselves, like other associations, to be able to go out there to the market, and I think jointly to be able to say, this is the problems you will find if you do not do this and you do not implement. These are our suggestions, these are our recommendations. It's entirely up to you if you use them or not. If you don't, this will be the repercussions. And I think that's how you actually get it moving forward. And I think that's got to be a joint thing between all associations. I don't think it'll be singularly, because it's the same objective that we're all trying to achieve.
Murad, I have always the notion that since we are talking about refrigerant transition, suddenly we are talking about the requirement to qualify and train people. In our preparation for the position paper, we have estimated that up to 70% of the refrigerants placed in the market annually is actually leaked or vented into the air. Why are we talking about qualification only now, when it's actually constituting one of the biggest issues and the biggest low-hanging fruit to grab to reduce the emissions, the carbon emissions from the leakages, but also reduce energy consumptions? After all, if there are no leakages, systems tend to perform a little bit better. Why are we talking about qualification only now?
To start with, actually, it came to my mind that when you said about 70% of the refrigerant imported is being leaked, means 30% of the refrigerant entering Saudi Arabia is going to the factory and charging a fresh new unit, and the rest is being replaced at the sites. Actually, this is very huge amount of refrigerant leaked, and the impact or carbon emission from it is so huge. Just to imagine it, 1 kilogram of R14A, which is the refrigerant available today in the market, it's equivalent to 2088 or plus minus of CO2 emission, or equivalent to CO2. So imagining that we have leak of 1 kg only, it means that we are leaking almost
2 tons, more than 2 tons.
more than 2 tons of CO2. And just to imagine what is it, or how can you evaluate it, it's equivalent to driving your car 10,000 kilometers. The emission comes from the car is equivalent to to the same amount of 1 kilogram of R14A. To think of it in another word also, I'm not sure about the number, but it's almost it's almost 4 kg of R14A equivalent to driving around the Earth, and the emission from it is equivalent to it. So back to your point, Anas, about we have today an opportunity to work with the safe and non-flammable refrigerant, which like 513A. So, but learning and education is a very critical point here. We need to start learning till the time that we are matured enough of using flammable or unsafe refrigerant, like natural refrigerant as an example. Ammonia is not safe, but it's a good natural refrigerant. So going deeper on this, I believe that we have to start learning. It's very essential. It's actually the pain point of going green, of going less emission refrigerant, is the education. We need to spend a lot of time. The industry, the market in this region requires a lot of education on this part. And as we said, the leak is something critical. And when Saudi Arabia already ratified Kigali, the requirement for the reduction of CO2 emission, because Kigali is calculation of the CO2 equivalent. If we, frankly speaking, if we only solve the problem of leak on the equipments and maintaining recovery from the service during any replacement of any part, I'm sure that this is wrong practice in the region. But most of the refrigerant equipped in the unit is being just thrown to the air without caring, because the people is not actually knowledgeable enough to know the negative impact on the environment of having refrigerant just vented to air. So we need to focus here, and we need to start every part of us, and all stakeholders need to take their part to educate the technicians and make like actually we are doing it in Danfoss. We have and you all invited to attend it. I will share maybe later the seminar that we are making for the Middle East region about using the refrigerants of A2L and natural refrigerants, and many work we have done with you, Eurovent, and I appreciate your advocating for the refrigerant transition, especially with the program that you already allocated for
training
certification for the people to use it. And I'm not saying that we can use 513A as an example, the safe now, but forget the future, because frankly speaking, if you go to the market today, it has A2L refrigerants, and some accident happened in the region where R600 is being since more than 2 years imported equipments, especially for home appliances and refrigerators. They are equipped with R600, which is flammable, but the technicians and users, they are not aware of it. So it's an important, again and again, I'm sorry for repeating myself, but it's very important topic. We need to focus on education, education, education. That's it.
And as basically almost the same question, why are we talking about that only now? Are we talking about it too late? And how do you see that, how is the region preparing? Do you see signs that we are preparing to get more training and more education into the market?
I honestly agree with all my colleagues here about the importance of education and certification. I think if there's one essential thing to make this transition successful is to focus on training and certification. You know, the current skill set that we have in the workforce, it's not necessarily applicable when we move on to the A2L or A3 or natural refrigerant. The whole handling requirement, the safety measures, the installation is different than the current skill set. So we need to make sure that we bring all our all stakeholders, from even installer, maintenance, the manufacturer, everybody to be aware with what is the requirement to handle these new refrigerant, the A2L and A3. And that we are in good position here in GCC that we don't need to actually reinvent the wheel or start from scratch, because Europe and other countries, they are already developing good programs that we can take from them. For the EU F-gas, for example, regulation, they have a mandatory certification for all people involved in handling refrigerant. Similar, like we have EPA 608 in the US, they have the same request and same qualifications for all people involving in that. So we can, in GCC, start looking at what the others have done and develop our own maybe certification program, because all what I see right now is individual efforts from different stakeholders, organizations like Eurovent. They're doing a great job in this. UL Solution, they're providing training, but we need to all maybe gather all this, put it under one umbrella, and have our own like mandatory training program for everybody involved in this system, in order to be able to have the confidence. Like every time I talk to anyone about implementing or adding an A2L or natural ventilation, they told me, Anas, yes, I like it, the idea, it's good, the decarbonization is great, but I don't have the people who can handle this, so I'm worried. There's worry in this field. So in order to erase that, we need 100%, we need education. People, once they know what they're doing, they get the confidence, and then they can do the transition.
Thank you, Anas. Amir, leaking and venting is a big waste of resources. And soon when we go into the phase down, of course, this will give pressure on the market, raise prices, and it will, with all likelihood, increase the influx of counterfeit refrigerants, claiming and being sold, you know, for a cheaper price and claiming to be legitimate refrigerants. How big is the risk? And what do you think will happen in the future? How can the government steer against that? What does the industry need to do in order to take a bit of control over that?
Okay, so I'll address it separately. You have two parts of your question. One is about the venting. Second is the counterfeit refrigerants. And venting is definitely an issue. And as most of my colleagues said, the way we can address is as much as building awareness, education. We are seeing the whole recycling of refrigerant industry evolving in Europe. And part of the reason it makes more sense in Europe is because of the economics. The economics drive it. I know awareness and education will help build the infrastructure. The government will create the regulation. But for any transition, economics will drive it. And in Europe, with the F-gas quota, to import HFCs is very expensive. So it makes much more sense to invest in a recycling infrastructure and for private sector to invest in it and drive that. In our region, okay, the quota has to still kick in as we move forward with the Kigali timelines. But I was talking to Surinder this morning over the breakfast, and I lightly said on a different note that we are talking a lot about gold prices. We're talking a lot about NVIDIA stocks, and anybody who missed buying that. If I was to look in my industry, I should look at the HFC prices, like R32, what it was last year, and it's almost quadrupled this year. And of course, the Chinese production quota, and there are different reasons that are driving it. If this is the trend, then it will definitely make more sense to recycle HFCs, right? And which will be good for the industry, and as I said, economics will drive it. The second part of it is counterfeit, which is a big pain for my business, and I had to challenge when I run the business here. And actually it emerges from a demand. The whole problem is coming from a demand from the consumers that they want to have a more reliable refrigerant. So if you go to the street where the business is done, for example, Railroad in Riyadh or Dera in Dubai, and all these traders and retailers, right? And that's where when a consumer is coming or a contractor is coming to buy a product, they want to buy something they can associate with quality. So they want, and from where is it coming from? Because they want their system to run reliably. They don't want their systems to fail. They do not want their cars to stop, ACs to stop working in the middle of the desert. So they associate the quality with certain brands, and they're willing to pay for that quality, and that's where the counterfeiting emerges. It becomes like a Rolex and counterfeiting because people associate, they want to pay higher, but they end up paying a counterfeit brand, which could be of any manufacturer, just because they associate more. There's a perceived value for it, that this will run my system more reliably, it is high quality, and I can associate with it. And this is very extremely unique for our region, to be honest. I do not have this challenge in anywhere in the world as a manufacturer and seller of refrigerant. Especially Middle East, again relates to the reliability, the high ambient conditions we are in, and the contractor's perception that I want to make sure I buy a good refrigerant for my system, whether it's a car or a AC or a refrigeration system, so that it keeps running long term.
Thank you, Amir. I mean, with what we have heard so far, so we are not talking only about educating and qualifying the engineer and the workforce. We also need to make people aware of counterfeits. It's like educating the society to not go always, be careful, do not go cheap. How have we managed in Europe? What systems do we have in place in Europe which allowed us probably to go fast on this transition? And what would you recommend this region to do in order to implement a better environment, a better ecosystem for education on our industry and the refrigerants? Sorry, Armin.
Okay.
Not Johannes.
Thanks for the question. I mean, we talked about education, and it's about also craftsmanship, good craftsmanship. These people, they want to deliver quality. They want to fix the unit. And the awareness, but the awareness is very important. That those who own this stuff later on, they know what they get. They get all the information, and these kind of meetings we have now will help to raise the awareness that we can do safe ammonia systems, we can do safe R290 systems, we can do a safe and clean CO2 system, very energy efficient, if I go to the right contractor, which has the certificate, which have hired the good people. And it's like, as I said, with the heart of your system. If you go with your Mercedes car, you don't go to a garage on the street to fix the engine. That's the same thing. So, and the people are around. Together we can educate them to the level we need. We can give the certificates, and then those who service or require service, of course they have to check what people are coming to my site. This can be done electronically nowadays. It's the pass and scanning and all this. In a way, the system is not opening up if you have the wrong IQ, the QI is wrong, huh? Something like that. Danfoss will help us on that, how to get access to these systems to do service. But what we also must understand is not rocket science. Most of these systems we are talking about are factory made. They are made in a very good environment, and it's all about the service when they are in operation. And that can be done nowadays often from online, the first part.
Distance learning.
already done, and then we can send the dedicated persons to do if it is really needed. And we can train them together and bring them to the level so that the end user have the trust to go to the next level, which are the natural working fluids. And that's what they do in Europe. Why did we do the transition in Norway to supermarket with CO2? Because if there was a leak, the contractor had to pay the refrigerant. And they had a 5-year warranty. In the first 5 years, the supermarket did not pay for the leak. So then suddenly a CO2 system was cheaper than the HFC system because the risk of losing it was much higher.
Too high. Yeah. Another very important part and aspect is harmonization and the legal environment. We need, the industry needs a legally safe environment to operate. We need to define liabilities, and we need to care for harmonization across countries. We cannot have different liabilities in every country because we have cross-border supply chains. We are running a little bit late already, so I will just pick 2 people to answer this part. Murad, first of all, from a manufacturer's perspective, how essential is that we advocate for harmonization across borders in the GCC?
Yeah, I believe on this part, actually, we are in the era of a lot of changes, a lot of developments going on. The base of the new technologies is tremendously high, and the people, or let me say, focus on the Middle East. In the Middle East, every country were having its own standard and its own regulation. A lot of work's being done by associations like AHRI and Eurovent to unify the standards, and this helps. As a manufacturer of component, I don't think that a lot of impact on us, except the part of high ambient, and where we have done some new developments to achieve it, but it's not related to the regulation itself. What I believe that harmonizing the regulation in the Middle East is essential to just have an efficient development stages, because as I said in the beginning, we have a lot of new technologies coming in and so on, new refrigerants, a lot of changes. And to save the time and efforts of all manufacturers, instead of every manufacturer will think to develop a new stuff related to each regulation, they may think and invest their time on developing something more efficient, as an example. Or, and as I said, the direct one, I believe, in my opinion, is the equipment manufacturers. The equipment manufacturers facing difficulty during the last maybe 7 to 10 years, especially with the SASO implementation. I'm saying here an example. For any application, there is SASO regulation, there is Tarakhis in Dubai, there is even Aramco, they have their own. So this, I believe, it's killing the time and the activities coming from the local manufacturers. Instead, it can be utilized in different ways of development. And I believe harmonization will help a lot to fast-track the development from local manufacturers and to spend their efforts to learn about the new systems. We said about the difficulties, right? Especially for the CO2. CO2 system is actually a complex or high-tech system. So having this implemented, we need to focus, we need to have time, actually. The market need to get the time to be educated about it. And instead of thinking of complying with each and every country regulation, I believe we need to invest our time in investing in developing a product which support the decarbonization goal at the end.
And I think that this harmonization aspect is also very relevant when we look at the qualification of the workforce. If we would have to qualify the people differently in every country, we restrict cross-border work assignments. Harmonization perhaps is key to the refrigerant transition. Otherwise, I think it will not fly, and we rather kill specifically smaller local manufacturers or local players in this field.
Agree, I can't agree more. Me personally, I worked on 3 countries in the GCC. I've been Qatar, UAE, and now in Saudi Arabia. And in every country, as you said, they have different regulation, different procedure, different certification. So all of that add to the complexity of dealing with the transition of refrigeration. What I think, like even for example, on organization level, we have in Aramco an example, we have different codes and standards and procedure than what is in Saudi building code. So having that option later on to maybe harmonize all these codes and requirements and even certification requirement for workforce across all the GCC, it's going to be a huge benefit to everybody. We can gain synergies, we can reduce cost. From manufacturing point of view, you don't need to go with bespoke solutions. We can go on with uniformity. And there's an example, again, I keep mentioning that there's example in the world that we can learn from. Europe is doing a great job on this, and we can follow path. And that's harmonization, having one GCC framework that everyone can follow can save us a lot of time and gain confidence and maybe cross-reference, as you said, between different countries. They can, all the talent can go between each country, and will make the whole transition smoother.
Thank you, Anas, and I apologize, we are out of time, but thank you, everybody, for contributing to this.